California's fentanyl crisis and the work that we are doing to address this. I'm pleased to be joined today by a number of my colleagues, as well as by leaders and advocates from all across the state of California. Thank you for your partnership and your leadership. Fentanyl is one of the most dangerous and deadly substances in the world. Just 2 milligrams, that's 2 grains of sand, is enough to kill. And kill it certainly has. Over the course of the last 6 years, fentanyl deaths in California have skyrocketed from 239 in 2016 to nearly 6,000 in 2021. That's an increase of over 2,000%, and that number continues to climb. Every single day, more than 15 Californians die of fentanyl poisoning. And let's remember that these are not just numbers and statistics. There are loved ones. There are moms and our dads, our brothers, our sisters. There are community leaders, teachers, coaches, mentors, and friends. And they are our kids and our grandkids. My colleagues and I are working to address the fentanyl crisis here in California. This session, we have introduced a wide range of legislation. I have introduced 2 bills to address the proliferation of fentanyl online. And there's 2 disturbing trends that have really led me to focus on this particular area. The first is the proliferation of counterfeit fentanyl pills. People, and increasingly our kids, are buying things that they think are a Xanax or a Percocet or an Adderall, when in reality, they're pills that are laced with pure poison, with pure fentanyl. The second is that drug traffickers are abusing social media platforms to target and to sell to our kids. The reality is today, drug dealers don't need to lurk in dark street corners or remote parking lots. They connect with young people on platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and a host of others. As a mom, I will tell you that this absolutely scares the hell out of me. And as a legislator, I am absolutely determined to do something to combat this crisis. So I've introduced 2 bills to help keep our kids safe online. AB 1027 will help law enforcement investigate fentanyl deaths by creating more stringent data storage and retention requirements for social media companies. And AB 955 will strengthen penalties for online traffickers who are targeting and killing our kids online. As I said, my 2 bills are part of a package of legislation that have been introduced by leaders and colleagues from across the state. So now pleased to introduce someone who is leading in combating this crisis. Please welcome Assemblywoman Liz Ortega.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and thank you, Assemblymember Petrie-Norris, for having me here today to talk about my bill, AB 1060. So to put it simply, we are in a public health crisis. In California alone, about 7,000 people have died from the opiate overdoses. And according to the CDC, approximately 150 people per day are overdosing on fentanyl. It just takes 2 milligrams. That's smaller than a grain of rice. So as the assembly member mentioned, I'm also a mother of 4 children. And this is also something that's very near to my heart and very scary, which is why as soon as the CDC announced, the FDA announced that they would make Narcan available over the counter, I acted immediately to make sure that we had AB 1060, because while having it be over the counter is great because it's a life-saving drug that we know works, it's not going to do much if people cannot afford it. Currently, it costs about $140 depending on the dosage, and many families are barely making ends meet, which is why my bill will make sure that Narcan is covered through Medi-Cal and private insurance. This is a life-saving bill. We should not allow any more lives to be lost. And as a mother, I want to make sure that I have that life-saving drug in my purse in the event that I need to use it. And we have heard cases in the media about events where if someone had it in their bag, it would have saved a life. And so I want to thank my colleagues for being here today and working with us on this very important issue. I will say a couple words in Spanish. Gracias a la asambleísta Petrie-Norris por tenerme aquí y por hablar sobre este proyecto y esta situación que tenemos con la sobredosis de fentanil. Yo estoy hablando de mi legislación AB 1060. En pocas palabras, estamos en una crisis de salud pública y por eso es que yo introducí esta ley. Ahorita aproximadamente 150 personas están muriéndose por sobredosis de esta droga. Solo se necesita 2 miligramos más pequeños que un grano de arroz para matar a alguien. Por eso es que yo introducí AB 1060, porque nuestros niños no deberían de morir y es lo que está pasando con esta droga. Ahorita tenemos Narcan y la FDA anunció que la van a hacer, la podemos agarrar en las tiendas, en las Walgreens, en las CVS, pero cuesta casi $140. Y mi bill va a ser, mi legislación va a ser que vecinos, padres, cuidadores de niños puedan ir a la farmacia y no preocuparse de tener que pagar $140. Mi legislación va a ser para que esta droga esta medicina sea cubrida por Medicare y por aseguranza privada. Quiero agradecer a todos mis colegas por estar aquí hoy, por su trabajo en este importante tema. Muchas gracias.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assemblywoman Esmeralda Soria, representing the Central Valley Assembly District 27. I also want to thank Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris for bringing us here today to ensure that we continue to raise awareness on this critical issue that is impacting communities across the state of California. The fentanyl threat our state is facing represents not only a public health, but also a public safety crisis that has touched an entire state, including in my district in the Central Valley. In Fresno County, fentanyl overdoses more than have doubled since 2019 to 2020, and they continue on the rise. Fentanyl has claimed the lives of thousands of California youth, as we've heard. And it is important that we come together, not just today, but over the coming months and the coming legislative sessions to ensure that our policymaking body comes up with real solutions like the ones that we are presenting today so that we combat this crisis and we continue to ensure that we're saving the lives of those that come across in contact with this deadly drug. Earlier this year, I introduced AB 675, which is a very simple measure to help be a tool in the toolbox to address this crisis. AB 675 will make it crystal clear that if you're caught by law enforcement with a loaded firearm and fentanyl, you will be charged with a felony. Gun violence, we know, is already a major issue in our communities, but coupling the fentanyl epidemic with firearms presents a powder keg of risk. Current law already treats heroin and possession of a firearm as a felony, yet fentanyl, which is up to 50 times stronger, as we heard, more than heroin, and it is not explicitly mentioned in the statute. This bill will protect California's public in a very tangible way while providing the courts with clarity on this important issue. I look forward to continuing the work and joining my colleagues here, not just on the educational efforts to ensure that we are letting our community know of the dangers of this drug, but again, on legislation that will provide life-saving drugs like life-saving Narcan to families that cannot afford it, but also looking at how we disincentivize criminals from really having this drug in our community. And so I look forward to working with all of you to ensure that our community is safe and that this crisis gets under control. Thank you for the opportunity. Now we'll pass it on to Senator Dave Cortese. Okay. Now I will pass it over to Assemblymember Matt Haney.
Thank you. Fentanyl is the biggest, most deadly epidemic that Californians are facing, and it is time that our state act like it. Nearly 7,000 people in our state died just last year from fentanyl. That's tens of thousands of people who lost a loved one, lost a son or daughter, lost a friend. We need solutions that are as big as the crisis that we're facing. We know what it looks like to respond to a public health epidemic with everything that we have. We just did it with COVID-19. Every part of our state, local jurisdictions, the state resources has to be leveraged to confront this epidemic. It's not that we need enforcement and not treatment. It's not that we need Narcan and not treatment. We need all of it. We need all of it. We need more and better enforcement. We need more and better treatment. We need more and better education. We are not going to reverse this deadly epidemic unless we do all of these things. And I want to commend Ms. Petrie-Norris. I want to commend my colleagues, because the package of bills that are in front of us are finally beginning to respond to this epidemic at the scale that our constituents are experiencing it. This is what it will take: action, action at a scale and a comprehensive plan to beat back the fentanyl epidemic. We started for the first time a select committee on fentanyl here in the Capitol. I'm very proud to be the first chair of that committee. We will be meeting right when select committees start at the beginning of May to bring forward not only the ideas that we have here, but a comprehensive plan to respond to the fentanyl epidemic. The fentanyl epidemic is impacting every city and every community in our state. It doesn't know geographic lines, it doesn't know partisan lines, and so our response has to be about coming together with real solutions. I have a number of bills in addition to the ones that are here in front of us that will expand access to treatment. Less than 1% of people who overdose are actually enrolled in treatment after that overdose. There are effective treatments for addiction to fentanyl, and we should ensure that every single person who needs access to those treatments, buprenorphine, medication-assisted treatment, sober living, whatever it is that works for them should be made accessible if we're going to truly beat back this epidemic. More and better enforcement, yes, but also access to treatment for people who are addicted. I want to next introduce someone who's been leading on this issue as well in the Senate, and that's the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Tom Umberg.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember Haney, and thank you, Assemblymember Petrie-Norris, for bringing us together here today. A special acknowledgement, a special thank you, a special recognition, though, of those families, those like Chris Didier, those like the other families that are gathered here today, who have taken their sorrow, their grief, their tragedy, and used that sorrow, that grief, that tragedy to try to move us, the people who work in the building behind me here, to do something about this epidemic. I spent a career in drug policy. I prosecuted those who have distributed large amounts of drugs here in the United States. As a federal prosecutor, I spent time in the Army dealing with the opium challenge in Afghanistan, in time in Latin America, in the administration, in the White House Office of Drug Policy. We have never seen anything like this. This is not just an issue of substance abuse. This is an issue where someone like Alexandra thought she was buying oxycodone. Turns out it was laced with fentanyl. One pill, killed. This crisis cries out for every tool that we have Most effective tool is prevention. Most effective tool is prevention. When I worked for with the drug czar, he used to say, the best thing we can do in terms of substance abuse and drug policy is have a conversation with a young person at the kitchen table. That can't always occur, and even if it does occur, there are other tools that we need to employ, and we need to do it now. More people have died from overdoses, many related to fentanyl, here in just the last couple years than those who died in the Korean War, the war in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Right now, overdose deaths, largest cause of death for those between the ages of 24 and 45. Among those tools is enforcement. Among those tools is letting folks know that if they sell fentanyl, that they're going to go to prison. That they're going to go to prison. Now, we have a bill, SB 44. SB 44, Alexandra's Law, it deals with something very simple, very simple. If you sell fentanyl, and you're convicted of selling fentanyl, and you do it again for a second time, and you're convicted, and you kill somebody, then you're going to face increased punishment. The purpose is to dissuade those, to warn those, to prevent those who are either selling or contemplating selling illicit drugs. By the way, whether you know it or not, that substance may contain fentanyl. In some places, will likely contain fentanyl. And if you do so, we're going to prevent you from reselling, from selling one more time. Now, I am very pleased that I've heard that the Assembly is going to schedule a hearing next Thursday on this crisis. That is very good news for us, very good news for California. We can't keep our head in the sand. We can't issue a resolution that says, hey, listen, we're not going to deal with this till 2025. We're not going to be able to do something to tell Californians, hey, you have to put off dying until 2025 because we haven't gotten our act together. And so I am elated that the Assembly is moving forward. Next step is to get the other house to move forward as well. Thank you. Let me introduce Jonathan Feldman on behalf of the California Police Chiefs Association, who's been a strong ally in this fight. Jonathan?
Good morning, everybody. Glad to see the good turnout for this event. As mentioned, my name is Jonathan Feldman. I am the legislative representative for the California Police Chiefs Association, the association that represents all 334 municipal police chiefs in the state. I'm honored to be here and express the immeasurable support and thanks from Cal Chiefs for the efforts of Assemblymember Petrie-Norris and all of their colleagues here today in developing and promoting this educational and public awareness campaign that they're announcing. I don't need to reiterate how serious the issue is. We've heard plenty about that. The statistics are clear and shocking. This is an epidemic and people are dying. As such, it is beyond any one group, any one entity, or any one profession to solve this compounding problem on their own. Police chiefs and law enforcement play a critical role in these efforts, but so can the public, and so can our state representatives. And so again, I appreciate the efforts underway and all of the work done by everybody. From Cal Chief's standpoint, we do think the legislature can assist in passing legislation like Assembly Bill 955 and those mentioned today, especially those that strengthen laws on those who are selling fentanyl, especially those who use online platforms to expose children and push sales, which is the focus of Assembly Bill 955. As Senator Umberg mentioned, we were excited to hear this morning that the Assembly Public Safety Committee is reversing course and will be holding a special hearing next week on 6 bills related to this crisis. We look forward to those discussions and hopefully seeing those bills move forward. It is beyond past time for us to start acting. We have to do everything we can. And so for the last time, I want to thank everybody up here today, all the Assembly members and the senators for their partnership, and look forward to continuing our efforts. And I will pass it to Amy Neville from the Alexander Neville Foundation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Assemblymember, for having me here today. My name's Amy Neville, and I'm with the Alexander Neville Foundation. Oh, thank you. Help me out there. And we are the proud sponsors of AB 1027 and 955. But more than that, I'm Alexander's mom. My son Alex in May of 2020, my son Alexander turned 14 years old. He was living in a world of skateboarding, video games, school, and COVID. During the lockdowns, he got to keep doing those things because of social media. He stayed connected and met up with friends using social media. That next month, Alex died on the floor of his room from a fake pill made to look and marketed as an oxycodone, but was really fentanyl. He died because his main source of news, friends, and outside affection took advantage of him. Snapchat had helped to hold his social life together so it could market his profile, trade on the data, like they do to everyone on their platform, making multi-billions of dollars every single year. AB 1027 holds social media companies liable to the smallest degree. It is a great beginning. This is why Snapchat and large social media companies are concerned. They believe that they are blameless because all they've done is to build a platform for people to interact any way they like. So what do they have to do with it? With Snapchat, Alexander was able to associate with anyone, including a sketchy mid-20s dude that worked at Jack in the Box and had bigger aspirations. Those aspirations included dealing drugs to your kids, fully aware that those drugs could kill him. Alexander is one of several killed by the same Snapchat drug dealer. This bill won't keep our loved ones from meeting up with horrible people. This bill incentivizes working with law enforcement to stop those horrible people from continuing to deceive and kill our loved ones. It will not strangle the life hold of a $100 billion company. Instead, this bill will tell the company leaders that their bonuses are on the line if they don't work with the people who live on their platforms. The people on and off their platforms require a guarantee of communication between the parties. We must have full cooperation from companies when the cost of doing business is our children's lives. Stronger legislation, coupled with better education and awareness campaigns, will not completely solve the problem, but it will give our children and the public the information they need to keep themselves safe. Thank you. And Chris, come on over.
Thank you, everyone. Assembly members, Senator Umberg, Assemblymember Petrie-Norris. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and share our family story. My name is Chris. This is Zach, and I am Zach's dad. I am originally from Sacramento. For college, I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and after receiving my commission, I went to pilot training and flew a 22 career in active duty. Combatants bear witness to all aspects of the human condition, and I will forever be grateful for the privilege serving alongside our nation's modern-day Spartans. Many of our military struggles involve facing opposition forces over the hostile skies of the Balkans, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and witnessing the loss of brothers and sisters who served faithfully but not make it home. They gave their lives for me. They gave their lives for you. They paid the ultimate price, and many here may know family and friends who also have paid the ultimate price. But my most recent tragedy is my greatest loss and brings a whole new level of debilitating torment. 2 days after Christmas in 2020, I found my youngest son, Zach, appearing to be asleep but not breathing. I never imagined using my military training to give CPR to my own son in the privacy of his bedroom and not on a battlefield. Losing a child from a danger we had never heard of before is an unspeakable loss to our family. We've learned Zach was sold a fake prescription pill through Snapchat, advertised as harmless Percocet. Despite having no known history of drug use, Zach died from fentanyl poisoning at age 17. Zach was a self-taught musician, straight-A student, a multi-sport athlete, lead role in his high school musical, active with community service and working on the rank of Eagle Scout. Since his passing, Zach's mother, Laura, and I had to open his acceptance letters into 5 UCs, including UCLA. Zach had no history of drug use, depression, anxiety, or struggling with ADHD. He was simply a high-caliber kid who liked to excel, help his friends, and loved life. I personally known death firsthand since my first military deployment, but it has never touched me or place his crepit hand on my heart until I saw my beautiful son no longer with me. That day my eyes died, and I see the world now with a void too enormous to describe. We all have seen death has its fangs, and it sunk them deep into me, and my suffering is complete, and families should not have to suffer like this. Sadly, this crisis impacts families like the Nevilles and thousands of other families every single day. And statistics show it. CDC reported over 73,000 Americans in our nation have suffered a fentanyl fatality in a recent 12-month period. This more than fills NFL's newest stadium in Inglewood, California, SoFi. The fatality rate averages to about 200 daily in our country. Imagine an airplane crash in our country every single day. DEA estimates over 60% of pills sold on social media have the potential to be lethal. So how do we turn this heartbreak pain into heartfelt purpose? How do we convert our PTSD into post-trauma growth? There are many lanes to invest to help reduce fentanyl poisonings, and holding social media responsible to enhance safety on their platform is a needed cause. AB 1027 unquestionably steers us in that right direction. Many social media platforms give the appearance of a safe veneer of a trustworthy app that is entertaining. However, features like screenshot protection, self-destructing messages, and end-to-end encryption make social media activity both ephemeral and protected. These features have helped build a patchwork drug cartel, making cell phones a superhighway for illicit drug trafficking. These unregulated designs make it rife for dangerous content that only bolsters nefarious activity. 8 years before Facebook was launched, Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act was codified into law to protect internet companies from liabilities. These safe harbors disincentivizes the adoption of needed safety features. The hubris of big tech, believing they are shielded from liability, prevents them from implementing appropriate safeguards. Car-making companies would not invest in seatbelts or airbags unless the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration imposes crash test requirements, or food retailers would not invest in storage, processing, or proper labeling unless the FDA imposes handling codes and regulations. Clearly, there is a needed inflection point with social media that levy accountability for both harmful content and not complying with court-authorized subpoenas. We are all American citizens. A person died 7 minutes ago from illicit fentanyl. It is time for change. It is time for action. It is time for nonpartisan effort, working together side by side to implement reasonable safeguards on social media to keep our children and our citizens safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Chris. Alongside the legislative proposals that you have heard about this morning, we also recognize that in addition to more and better enforcement, to more and better treatment, we also need more and better education. And so we will be spearheading a statewide awareness campaign, leveraging the DEA's One Pill Can Kill campaign and resources to help educate the public, to help educate our kids and parents across the state of California about the tremendous dangers of fentanyl and what they can do to protect themselves and their families. In closing, I just want to say thank you to all of my colleagues who have joined us today, and I want to say a special thank you to the families and the advocates who are here. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you also, Mirka Cole, who is the mother of Merrick, who's also joined us today. Thank you for your advocacy and your leadership in this tremendously important fight. Thank you for everything that you do each and every day to protect our kids. And it's my commitment to you that we are going to do right by you, and we're going to do right by your kids. And so I want to just say thank you for sharing your stories and for turning your loss into action that will keep California kids and communities safe. So with that, we're happy to open it up for any questions that the media may have. So we've got a hearing scheduled next Thursday in the Public Safety Committee to hear the bills. And I think we'll be doing an assessment in terms of whether or not we've got the sufficient support. So in order to put in an urgency clause, we need to get the support of 2/3 of the members of the body. And certainly if we can get that support, we would put an urgency clause onto these bills so that we can get these policies enacted as quickly as possible. I think that we recognize that the fentanyl epidemic is an urgent public health crisis, and we certainly need to address it with the urgency that it demands. I think that we can marshal all of our resources. I don't know that we need to declare an official state of emergency in order to marshal all of our resources, but certainly the actions that we need to take need to be consistent with the emergency and the crisis that this is for our community today. Yes. I have been grateful for the bipartisan support that my proposals have enjoyed, and the reality is that this is not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue, right? This is not a red state crisis or a blue state crisis. This is an American crisis, and it's certainly a California crisis. And so I'm absolutely committed to working with all of my colleagues to ensure that we advance good policy that protects California kids. I'm grateful that the chair of our Public Safety Committee has set the bills for a hearing on Thursday, and I think that is an acknowledgement of the broad support that these bills enjoy throughout the legislature, and I think an acknowledgement of how many of our colleagues realize that this is an urgent issue that cannot wait.
Madam Assemblymember, from Orange County, do I remember that correctly?
Correct, yeah.
From Orange County, from your constituents, have you heard this is something that impacts them there as well? This is a statewide issue?
Yeah. This is, the fentanyl epidemic is impacting every community across the state and impacting the cities that I represent. In fact, just today, a person that I worked with a couple of years ago, I think, saw a piece of news coverage about the bills that we were working on and about this press announcement, and sent me a note to say thank you, and to say that he had just lost a cousin a couple of weeks ago because of fentanyl poisoning. That is, so we have advanced proposals that will, as I said, do more on the treatment and rehabilitation side. We've also advanced proposals that will strengthen penalties, and I think that is an important part of the equation. And as Senator Umberg, former prosecutor, said, that is an important part of the solution. We'll certainly be working to make that argument for our colleagues, and I think the bottom line is that reasonable people can disagree about the best way to approach this crisis, but reasonable people cannot agree that inaction is acceptable.
Assemblymember, you don't often see Democrats and Republicans working together in California just by merit of the Democratic supermajority. Can you speak to why we have Democrats working with Republicans today and why that was, maybe a necessary collaboration on this issue?
So the question was related to the fact that we maybe see Democrats and Republicans not working together is enough in California. And I'll tell you, I think that the vast majority of our constituents want us to put partisan politics, partisan bickering, and kind of partisan games aside to focus on solving the problems the many problems that are confronting the state of California, and that certainly includes the fentanyl crisis. And like I said, this is not a partisan issue. This is hurting kids and communities all across the state, and so we need to put partisanship and sort of Twitter hashtags aside and figure out how we're going to actually forge solutions that are going to protect California kids and California families.
And on Assembly Bill 955, that was previously held up. That is going to get the hearing now.
Yes.
That is going to get the hearing now. When it was held up, did you share that kind of frustration with your Republican colleagues too? I know that they had the whole press conference the other day about that. And now that it's going to get the hearing, what is your message to the committee?
So the message to the committee is, first, I'm grateful that the bills have been set. I'm grateful that we are going to engage in a debate around not just my bill, but the other proposals. And I think my message to committee members is that fentanyl is different. Fentanyl is not, in my view, this is not a drug. This is a poison. And so the way that we are approaching this needs to be different and needs to recognize just how dangerous and deadly this substance is. And we need to ensure that additional investments in treatment and rehabilitation are coupled with stronger penalties to ensure that we have appropriate punishments in place for traffickers who are poisoning Californians. All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining us and for spotlighting this critical issue, and look forward to continuing to work with all of my colleagues and with our advocates here to advance policy to combat the fentanyl crisis. Thank you.